Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen. We're with comic Ariel Julie. Ariel Julie, how the hell are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming on. We follow you everywhere. You are the Ariel Julie on Twitter, and on Instagram you are Ariel Julie comedy with some underscores between it, and that's your Instagram account. And I see you just being hilarious. What are your shows coming up? I see what do I see here on the Instagram account? You just got a bunch of shows all over the country. What's going on here? Globetrotting here.
No, I mean, not really.
Madison, Wisconsin. Oh my gosh.
I know, Indiana, Wisconsin. Killing it. I did a little bit of traveling in the fall. I did a couple of festivals, but yeah, I'm staying in the same like 300-mile radius for the next couple months.
So, I mean, how does a Madison, Wisconsin audience differ from a Chicago one?
Well, it depends, because like Chicago can be so many different audiences. Like you could in Chicago, you could be in like a woke room 1 minute and then travel like 5 blocks down the street and be in like, an older, kind of more conservative crowd. Like it just depends. I would say that Madison seems like the audiences are a little younger. They seem like they're a little bit more liberal and woke and cool.
Uniformly woke. And I guess that kind of dovetails with one of the topics that I chose from I always have the guests choose some topics to keep the episode distinct. And one of the topics I saw, hookup culture. I mean, it's interesting to me because I'm so damn I'm just kind of an introvert and I'm a weirdo like that. And so like the hookup culture thing is fucking bizarre to me. And so like, I want you to explain it to me, and I want you to teach me kind of like, how do your different audiences react to that? So if you get a conservative audience, are you talking about other things instead? Or is it, even funnier to them because they reflectively laugh at things that are slightly uncomfortable to them maybe?
I think it depends on the audience, and it also depends on how you present the material. Because if you present it to like a younger, woker audience, and you're like, we all hook up all the time, right? They're like, yeah, hell yeah, and then they're with you. But if you say something like that to like an older crowd, like we all hook up, they're like, what? But
I've hooked up with my wife, my cis het wife for the past 50 years. They're like, what are you talking about, person? And so how do you kind of tailor it for them?
Well, I kind of focus it more on me, and I just kind of say like, I do this, I've done a lot of this, and like I do this really specific thing. Anybody with me? And if I get cricket, I have like a funny thing to say. And if somebody is with me, like even one person, I'm like, yes, she gets it. You guys are not cool. She's, whatever.
And so kind of, what are some of the things that you can say about yourself that, provide a litmus test for such an audience? Like sometimes you're getting crickets and sometimes you get one person in the audience, and, for woke crowds, you're getting the whole audience. Like what are some kind of particular things without burning material? Just kind of what little tiny culture of sex or hookup culture can you bring up here today that kind of shed some light on your persona?
Well, I talk about having a list of people. Yeah, see, I didn't
list
even
of
have
people?
to finish a list of people.
Yeah, list is funny.
See, like you're already laughing because you know what I'm talking about. You have
just a list. Yeah, a list. Well, no, a list is funny. You're right that a list is funny, but it's not because I knew what you're talking about. I just think it's so different from, how people approach the bedroom. Like, taking the seriousness of a list into your bedroom is just funny. So is it a list of people or a list of things that you want to do? Like a bucket list of sex?
A list of people that you've been with, like a lot of people will like write down, this person that it's like your list, like this is your list of your body count. But when I'm on
the
stage,
body count,
and all I'll say is like, how many of you have a list? I don't even have to finish the sentence. People already know what I'm talking about. Usually they're already laughing. And if they don't know, and so that's kind of the litmus right there. Like if they're already laughing and with me, then I know they're going to be with me for the rest of the joke. If they're not laughing yet and I have to explain it, it's still pretty funny. Because usually like one person in the audience will be like, I kind of do. And I'll be like, yeah. And then I just go back to talking about me. So I don't really like put anyone on the spot like that, especially if they don't want to be.
Yeah.
But if they're with me, then they'll be with me.
So tell me about the list, like not your particular list, but just as far as how I should view someone's list. Someone you're thinking about getting with or whatever, and you're like, man, I really, because my list is so short, because I've taken myself out of the market for decades, man. I'm just so fucking weird. I'm a little OCD. I'm an introvert like crazy. I can't believe people would just like hook up with strangers. Like back when I was a young person, like I used to go nuts, but it's like when people were young, their lists were so small, but now everybody's got such a history, and I would never judge them or whatever. But how are we supposed to view our own lists, and how are we supposed to view the lists of potential sexual partners? Like, what's the appropriate perspective? What's the sex positive, healthy perspective to have on my list and other people's lists?
The healthiest perspective to have is it doesn't fucking matter. It should not matter to you if your partner's list is one person long or 100 people long. It should not matter. Like, I only have a list because I appreciated every partner that I had. And I just wanted to remember them in like a positive, like even in one small way. Cause it's like, if you're like,
this person was
around,
garbage, but man, they did this one little thing that makes me proud to have that person.
No, I mean, not like sexual, but just like every person matter. People are people. Like, they all matter. Like nobody is insignificant. Even if I didn't know your last name, it doesn't mean you don't have one. You
shared an experience with that person.
Yeah. No matter how brief or how small. Yeah, like, it doesn't. A person is a person, no matter how small. You know what I'm saying? So like, it doesn't. So I just kind of wanted to sort of just record, like, these were the people that I had a brief encounter with in my life. The number of people on the list does not matter. The number of people on your list does not matter. It certainly doesn't matter to me. So I think that's the most positive way to look at it, is that it doesn't matter at all. If you want to keep a little memory list, then that's for you,
But so I guess that's the thing. Like, do you think there's a difference between me, who's very sensitive and very self-serious and things like that, although I'm talking to hilarious comedians all the time, and people with a sense of humor? Because I think sex, strangers especially, would seem to require a little bit of a sense of humor. Do you agree?
Yeah. Oh, totally. You have to be able to laugh at like an awkward moment or like an awkward noise or smell that comes out of you. Like, because if you can't treat like what is effectively a hysterical situation, like, you and I are strangers, but like there's something in my body that wants to be like, wants part of your body inside of my body. And like, we don't even know each other as people. I don't know anything about your life, but like, you've got like angle part and I want it in my inside part. And like, let's do that. And it's going to be weird. And like, you don't know what I like and I don't know anything, so you gotta kind of roll with it and be like, look, this is what it is. Let's just like be in this, like, stop acting, like, I've definitely had partners that were like putting on this kind of guise of like, it's like what I saw in the porno. It's like, it's not like that. So you don't have to be some like, Rocco Siffredi or whatever. Like, you don't have to be that guy. You don't have to do that for me. Like, I went to theater school. I know what acting looks like. Like, you don't have to.
You can spot bad acting in real life when with your sexual partner. And I guess, from talking with me, I think the one thing you can learn is that sometimes it might not even be an act. Because I think sometimes you might run into somebody like me, and you can tell me if you've done so before, where the person is just so rigid and sensitive and not open and comfortable and doesn't have, I can't laugh at, like, I'm not saying that, I can't do this stuff, but I tend to think that one of the reasons why I don't put myself in those situations is because I'm worried I can't laugh at myself when it comes to things like my body or whatever. And so have you ever encountered somebody who might not have been trying to kind of mimic a porn, but just somebody who was so self-conscious or self-serious or rigid or sensitive where they couldn't laugh at it, and that became somebody who you might not want as a repeat offender on your list?
Definitely. Like, one accountant comes to mind.
And no, I'm in law, so it's not that far off.
Well, for guys like you, first of all, you gotta, like, part of being nice is like perspective taking, and like you have to kind of read the person that you're with, and like, you know, kind of pick up on their cues. So if somebody is giving you cues of like, I am not comfortable, or like I've got a hurdle, or there's something going on between the ears that's a little bit, you know, wonky, like you kind of have to take a step back and be like, hey, you know, what can I do to make you more comfortable? And like, it can be as simple as just asking. Like, because I know all these people are like, well, I can't just come out and say, are you uncomfortable? What can I do? But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
But do you
exactly
do
what
that?
I said.
So
That's
you do that
exactly what I
because you're like, I want to enjoy this moment. Your little hurdle in your head is kind of stopping you from enjoying this moment, which is going to kill
Yeah,
my enjoyment. So let me say something.
yeah, exactly. So I did say to him, like, hey, is everything okay? And is there anything I can do? Like, we can stop, we can take a beat, you know, we can just chat. Like, it's fine. You know,
That's
and,
hilarious.
and
But that, I mean, it requires somebody like you, though. So I mean, what if, you know, I think that some of these perfect strangers getting together don't always have one Ariel Julie in the mix who's going to speak up.
but they should, though. I
Yeah,
would
I
have made
know.
such a
Sure.
good sexual health counselor. Like, I would have made a
Yeah.
great sex psychologist.
Well, you still
But
can, and you're probably effectively doing so on stage. I mean, I guess that's one way you're doing it. You're just kind of doing a service to every audience that you talk about this in front of.
maybe okay, that's a very humanitarian way of looking at my stand-up. I thought I was talking about my pussy, but that's fine. That also works.
You could use that as a pull quote on the website, but I love that the fact that you're like, it's hysterical because our lizard brains have chosen each other, even though we're strangers, to kind of do this thing. And so we really have to, we're just kind of along for the ride of our sexual desires. So we should be able to kind of laugh at it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you summed it up way better than I did.
Oh yeah, that was, and so I guess, you know, one of the topics that we were talking, you know, thinking about talking about, it kind of fits in perfectly, which is serial killers. And so, how do we make sure that there's not a serial killer in the mix when it comes to kind of hookup culture?
Wait, what's your question about serial? Wait,
Yeah, so I'm saying let's mix the topics up and just like, how
right.
do you know that the person you're hooking up with is not a
Oh,
serial
how do you
killer?
know that they are a serial killer? I mean, you
No,
know,
that they're not. That, yeah, I mean, yeah. How do you know that you're about to hook up with somebody who's not going to kill you?
you don't.
I know.
That's part of the fun. It's what's fun about it. I don't understand why nobody else feels this with me. I mean, so yeah, like I think back on, you know, when I was really going around and hooking up with a lot of people, and I was like, it is actually incredible that I was not brutally murdered or robbed. You know, like, it is absolutely incredible that of all of, like, statistically something I mean, I did get a stalker. I actually got 2 stalkers. So that
Nice.
did, yeah, nice, right? That's how good I am in
You
bed.
stuck in
I
there.
am
You
so
stuck in
good.
their brain. You stuck in their
I
brain.
did.
Something about you. You know, stuck in
They
their
were
lizard
obsessed.
killer brains.
They were obsessed. No, I mean, like, it took me forever to find love, but I was able to make men obsessed in a scary way. So it's not the same, but it's close.
And do you think is, I mean, do you think that you kind of, you know, addicted these particular individuals for the same reason that you avoid serial killers, which is you actually look for signals throughout, and that's what makes you a good sexual partner, you know, and that's kind of what addicts them, but also, you know, prevented you from, you know, kind of hooking up with another Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, you know, well, first of all, Jeffrey was gay, so I'm not his type. But I like to think that I would have been able to spot a violent offender, you know, prior to something violent happening. But like, I truly don't know. And I haven't seen anybody that I have hooked up with in the news or anything like that. Like, I haven't seen a Dateline or a 2020 or a Netflix special about a guy. I'm like, oh my God, that's that guy. Like, that
He hooked up with Ariel Julie, and she stuck in his brain. He went crazy.
That has not happened yet, or at least that I know of. And that's the other, it's like, you never know. It's like, maybe I did hook up with a serial killer, but maybe I was just like so bad in bed that he was like, why bother? You know, like, I don't know.
But then, you know, did finding love, you know, hooking up with a bunch of people, did that kind of help you, you know, find love, to kind of refine what you're looking for and what you're not looking for?
It helped me realize when I had a good thing when it came along. Like, I hooked up with enough people to know what I liked and what I didn't, but also what was important and what wasn't. because stuff that was important to me when I was like 25, very different than what was important to me when I was 30, you know?
Okay.
So it changed. And when somebody came along who matched a lot of aspects of my life and like sexually and romantically and all of that, I was able to kind of be like, oh, this is what something good feels like and looks like.
Okay, well, with that change, did your comedy change? You know, if the things you're
Um,
looking for in love and a partner and things like that change from 25 to 30, do the things you think are worth talking about on stage or the things you find funny, do those change between 25 and 30?
I wouldn't know. I didn't start doing comedy till I was 29.
Oh, and did that have something to do with it? Like, where,
Uh,
you know, are you like, oh no, I finally settled down and I know what I like in a romantic partner, but hey, I also think that some of this stuff is funny. You know,
well, yes and no. Like, so I started doing comedy right when I had gotten out of a really bad relationship. And then so there was you know, and I never really talked about that relationship on stage, and I still haven't, because it's not funny to me. It's just like, it's just a
yeah,
bummer.
some
Like,
things
I'm not
are
talking about
awful that you can't even talk about without kind of,
yeah.
you know, then you're reliving the experience night in, night out when you're trying the material
Well,
out.
I don't even mind reliving. Like, it's just like I haven't found an aspect. I guess there are a few kind of funny anecdotes, but I talk about my current relationship on stage all the time because there's a lot of funny stuff in it. And so, and I think that's relatable and all of that. Um, but I still talk about when I was single, and I still talk about people that I dated and people. Oh, she just retweeted me. Cool, thanks. Sorry. I
I'm
still
retweeting
talk about
all the funny comedians that Koppen with comic.
yay. Well, I still talk about, you know, when I was single, because I wasn't doing comedy when I was single.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't get to do all of that. I didn't get to talk about it on stage. So I talk about it now in past tense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like what's his name with John Mulaney. He's like, if I were a Def Jam comedian in the '80s, I would have said this joke and I would have slaughtered. Alas, I was not a comedian, a Def Jam comedian in the '80s. Like,
Yeah.
and so you need to talk about older stuff, but like, how are you making it current just by saying it happened the other day? Or are you
No,
trying to do it from the perspective of, oh man, I used to hook up with everybody. Let me tell you some shit.
well, yeah. I mean, I say like when I was single, it was this. Like I saw so much dick. Like, how much dick did you see? I saw so much dick. You know, and then you kind of like share a story. Like I went out with this one guy who was a pro golfer. I went out with this guy who was a chef. I went, you know, or whatever. And you like, you know, you make it funny, and you write. You have to write. You know, you have to have good writing to talk about actual experiences
I
and
mean, do you
make the
think that,
audience
yeah,
laugh.
like, so do you think that like the audience, I mean, like, are you reading a reaction in the woke audiences or the sex positive audiences that is like, this is cathartic, like they're laughing with you? It's like, yes, pro golfer and professional chef, they had bad dick, you know, meaning like people in the audience are like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I went through the same period. You know, the experience was a mixed bag. Are they laughing with you like, yeah, I'm glad that phase of my life is over? And are you kind of writing towards that where everybody can have that shared experience of, yeah, I do remember going through that period in my life?
Yeah, I think it's bold. I mean, when I'm with a younger audience, they're like, "Oh, I'm going through that right now." You know, when I'm with an older audience, they're like, "I remember the days," you know, or like maybe you get really lucky and you talk about like, you know, dating a chef or something, and then one of the guys in the audience is like, "I'm a chef." I'm like, "Oh, then you get it. This is about you. You fucking get it." Then, so yeah, I mean, it being relatable. Like no person is going to relate to every crowd, but you should be able to like read the room and figure out where your crowd is at. And it's like you got to meet them where they're at, you know. And you
Yeah.
can still, I think you can still do material that is you and true to you, but making it relatable to an audience just by changing like the wording of the premise, just by changing like the order that you tell the jokes. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't say like, oh, I would never talk about hookup culture or hooking up with a guy in front of an older audience. I would say that I would change it to like come at it in a different way where they can be like, oh, I remember, you know, that, or like, oh, I understand what she's talking about now. Like, I didn't know what OnlyFans was. Thank you for explaining it to me. Now
Yeah.
I will subscribe. You know what I mean? Like,
But it's, you know, it's like an audience. It's just like a sexual partner. the Ariel Julie meets them where they are, right? Like, if the
She
person's
tries.
uncomfortable, you kind of make them comfortable, but also the audience. It's like you just don't go with the raunchy shit when it comes to a 70-year-old. It's like, who's that? Rachel Feinstein. She did that thing about she's talking about an older, a couple in the 50s. Like, she was like, I have to set my cans. And so she kind of almost brought, dating into like, putting it in their perspective by setting it in the 1950s. And so that was so funny for me. But I'm so glad you came on. Of course, I retweeted you because you're funny. But everybody can, if they're not going to wait for my retweets, they can follow you on Twitter at the Ariel Julie, and also on Instagram. She is Ariel Julie Comedy. I hope I didn't mess up your pronouns.
No, she,
Okay.
her, all the way.
Okay. And then you're producing shows for Laughter Hours Comedy. I'll mention that too. You got shows coming up?
Yeah. We're every Friday at the Lincoln Lodge in Chicago at 11 p.m. It is comedy and jazz.
Comedy, gold, and jazz. Ariel Julie, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.